Joining me now to discuss all of this is Associate Professor of Economics at Florida Atlantic University and Director of the Sound Money Project at the American Institute for Economic Research, William Luther. Thanks for the time tonight.
Yeah, my pleasure.
All right, so let's get a little nerdy here. When Democrats talk about job creation, they tend to be looking at things that get government grants to create the jobs, like wind, solar, that bus company that they gave billions of dollars to and went under. Trump is looking for jobs to be created without government investment or without government grants, at least. I know we could talk about Intel, but that is the difference. When jobs get created in a free market environment with low taxes, it doesn't cost the taxpayer anything.
That's exactly right. Not all jobs are created equal. Some jobs are productive jobs. They increase our ability to produce valuable goods and services. They make us all richer. Other jobs are neutral. They cost what they're worth to produce. And unfortunately, some of the jobs that governments pursue are actually negative value jobs. They inhibit other people from producing value. So we don't want to just chalk up all the jobs and say things are going well. Maybe that's not the case. Instead, we have to look at what those jobs are that are being created and whether or not they're actually productive jobs.
Right. So you might have a quarter where there's job loss, but if, let's say, the government was cutting off grant programs that were, supposed to create jobs or did create jobs, and those jobs no longer exist. It's not because the market or the economy is doing badly. It's because the government is cutting out the spending on those jobs. And one of the funny things, I think we learned this during the pandemic, and I know people said DOGE was unfair, and they had all these federal workers protesting in the streets. But when people couldn't say concretely what it is they do to earn their salary, simple questions. I mean, I guarantee if you went to one of these government agencies and went to the janitor and said, can you tell me the 5 things you do all day? But I mop the floor, clean the bathroom, spritz the plants down, wash the windows, whatever it is, empty the recycling. He can tell you what he does. If you've got bureaucrats earning 6-figure salaries and they're program coordinators and they work 2 hours a day, maybe 7 hours, 8 hours a week, why would we have that many people working so many jobs when one person could probably pick up the job of 4?
Well, unfortunately, I think part of the answer there is that we have a bit of a spoils system, right, where a lot of these folks who are in these jobs that aren't very productive are in them because they have been put in them by folks who want to perpetuate a very large government, a very meddlesome government, a government that actually discourages real production, genuine production, production that takes place in the private sector. And that's not to say that all government jobs are net negative jobs, but certainly with where we are at the moment, a lot of them are, and we would be, doing well to get rid of some of those.
But do you remember the movie Office Space?
Yes.
The scene where they ask the guy, "What do you do?" He goes, "I take the specs to the engineers," and you're like, "Well, why can't What do you mean? Well, I deal with the customers. You just take the specs to the engineer. We don't need you to do that sort of thing." When we have these people that are doing these jobs that you say are inhibitive because they're probably regulatory jobs, meaning they're regulating somebody else's productivity and getting paid large sums of money to work a few hours, I could understand why we would want to get rid of that so we could free up the economy, not just from paying the bureaucrats, but to stop their overregulating of the economy to justify the income that they're making.
That's absolutely right. When you or I think about a job, certainly we would prefer to have a job than not have a job. And so there's this inclination to think of jobs as a good thing. And certainly in the private sector, they are. But not all jobs are good things. Some jobs, as I was saying, create headaches for the rest of us. And that's certainly the case when you have government engaged in that hiring. The number of jobs is just not a reliable indicator of the standard of living. The analogy I give my students in the classroom is, suppose that you were stranded on a deserted island and you have to hunt for your coconuts every day, and one day a box of canned goods rolls up on shore, right? You don't shove those back into the ocean on the grounds that it's going to eliminate some of your jobs. You realize that that's going to free up some of your time to do other things. And the same thing happens when we let go of unproductive workers in the federal government. those folks, they're going to have their time freed up, and hopefully they will go on to actually produce something of value, something that makes other people's lives better off rather than worse off.
And on a side note, I don't think the people who are working in government who are policing our behavior should be getting away with mortgage fraud. It seems like this is a pretty rampant thing. Maybe it's because the district is so expensive to live in or dangerous. So people live in other places and try to get better mortgage interest rates. I don't know. I got less than a minute.
Yeah, I think the allegations that have been made here are very strong allegations. To my knowledge, they haven't filed charges yet. It may eventually come to that. But certainly the evidence that has been alluded to so far looks pretty clear that this particular governor said she was living in a primary residence, and then just 2 weeks later said, no, she has another primary residence, but didn't go back and correct the record on the first. That's a problem, and we would like to think that our folks who are serving in the federal government at such high roles are not trying to take advantage of the possibility for lower rates here by falsely claiming you're living in two places at once.
All right, I got to leave it there. Thanks for the time tonight.
My pleasure.